Hello and welcome everyone to another Haws webinar. We appreciate your attendance. Our topic today, I think, is very pertinent to a lot of the issues we are still dealing with and will continue to deal with worldwide during and even after this pandemic. And we're going to talk about the impact of COVID on hydration and what to expect moving forward. This topic is an interesting one, and it came up due to my primary role at Haws as an educator, presenter of varying webinar topics to the industry. And as you may know, Haws makes two primary groups of products: emergency shower and eye wash safety equipment, and commercial drinking fountains and bottle fillers, being the other side of that coin. Now, as I've gone about doing my regular trainings, it struck me in recent months, because I can't get out to travel nearly as much as I was previously, and couldn't participate in trade shows and see customers, just like many of you are in the same boat, I'm sure. What has changed in our business? Are things pretty much the same? Did we take this giant 1-year pause and now we just hit reset and move on? So this idea kind of grew, and I thought it would be a really great idea to have a discussion on those particular questions. So to assist with this and to give a broader perspective, I asked one of our regional sales directors to chime in with his views from the field. So with that said, my name is Justin Dunn. That's my mug there on the screen. I'd like to introduce Lex Klees, our regional sales director for the West, who really has had a hands-on perspective of what's going on in the hydration market as he directs our efforts in his expansive territory. The West has historically been the strongest region for Haws as far as hydration goes. It's where we started, having originated in Berkeley, California, and is very close to our manufacturing hub in Reno.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Morning, everyone. This is a topic that really holds a lot of interest to me, and I look forward to chipping in how I can this morning.
Perfect. And I'm also joined by Hayden Delgado. He's our field marketing specialist. Hayden often works alongside me on our regular webinars, but also spends some of his time in the field as well. So the three of us will try to give you an overview of just what we're seeing in the market.
Thank you, Justin. Good morning, Lex. I have 2 bits of housekeeping this morning that I wrote in big letters so I wouldn't forget. The first is a reminder of our drawing today for a free new Haws 1210 electric water cooler bottle filler for those who registered and joined us. And that drawing will be soon after the presentation. Second, please make sure to send any questions you have and anything you would like addressed in the chat. We typically get quite a few questions, and I can't promise all will be answered live today. But if your question is not answered, we will be sure to respond quickly.
And good luck to everybody that's involved in that drawing. And that 1210 is a beautiful new piece of equipment. So Lex, the way I see this past year or so is that the safety industrial channel with emergency equipment has largely been unchanged in terms of product, and certainly any requirements necessary to adapt this equipment to a pandemic. Demand and access have kind of ebbed and flowed depending on where you are regionally, but the products and the demand for products really hasn't budged much. But I hear so much about safe facilities and schools, and the need for things like improved HVAC systems in occupied buildings, that I suspect things are far different with drinking fountains in this current climate.
Yeah, and Justin, to jump in and add to that real quick, I can tell you that my last trip in the field was a trade show in Portland just over a year ago with Lex. And even back then, we were seeing concerns start to grow over who was touching what. And I even remember seeing the first fountain that was being shut down over concerns with safety. So I'm in agreement with you here on that.
Yeah, you guys are right. The market's been kind of crazy, and we've I would say, arguably say that we've seen more change in the past year in the hydration market during COVID than over the past decade or even more combined. There's products that were available pre-COVID but not very popular have skyrocketed. I'll go over some of our hands-free fountains, some of which existed before, but really nobody paid attention to, but suddenly they're mainstays for us during COVID. And new products have come out very rapidly, and the concerns of the market have been changed completely. So that's a big change. So the theme really of what I'll cover today is that COVID has forced rapid change, and I don't expect we'll be turning back. Prior to COVID, focus, I would say, was really more on cost-effective ways to produce drinking water for the masses. Focusing on ADA and plumbing code, sure, and a quality product, sure. But now there's a heightened demand, I would say above almost anything, for safe access to drinking water. And as a manufacturer, we've had to react, as I'll show, and so have our competitors in the space as well. So as I talk about this change, I also like to reference where both the CDC and the ADA sit regarding safe access to drinking water and the challenges I see in the market as well. And really the bulk of the focus of what we'll look at today that ties all this together is that new products are trending and will continue to come out in the market. And I'll explain these trends by way of some of the new Haws products in the past year or so. Obviously, Haws is the product I know, but it allows me to speak to the market in general by looking at some of our items that we've come up with. Some are unique to the market, and some are really just indicative to what the market as a whole has moved towards.
Okay, oops, sorry, I kind of skipped a slide there. Okay, Lex, so how do we go from a situation where we're seeing fountains and bottle fillers turned off or blocked and navigate back to the safety of the past? With COVID's impact on fountains and access to clean drinking water, what's next for this category of product and the future of hydration in public?
Yeah, that's a valid question, Justin, and I guess it's really at the heart of what I want to talk about. Things in our world, as I said, are in turmoil with hydration. You look at the image on the left with the caution sign on it. That's from my home airport, SeaTac, just outside of Seattle, and it's on all the electric water coolers throughout the airport, and it urges caution and really recommends that you only use the hands-free bottle filler on the electric water coolers, and you stay away from operating the manual drinking fountain. So there's a lot going on in the market that is up in turmoil. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's important, one of the first things I like to do when I'm talking to a variety of groups, as I have been in the West, and I've been talking because I can't visit anybody, and dialoguing with anyone from our sales reps to engineers and architects, contractors, facility managers. I think it's always important. I always draw them to these points to discuss the position of both the CDC and the ADA when it comes to drinking fountains, because it's very pertinent and it sets a frame. And it's important to note that the CDC, as it says here, they address decorative water features in general, and even specifically fountains. And what they say, to quote them here, the CDC recommends all facilities develop a comprehensive water management program. And they talk about following recommended manufacturer guidelines for maintenance and cleaning. Note what it doesn't say is go ahead and shut your fountains down and ignore pertinent civil rights legislation like the ADA. And if you look at the CDC has also come up with documents on reopening schools, very specific guidelines you can look up if you haven't seen them already. They specifically say that you should not shut down drinking fountains. They call out drinking fountains because of concerns over stagnant water and Legionella, because of concerns over stagnant water and buildup of copper and lead in certain circumstances. And yet, everywhere we turn, and I'll show it later on during the presentation, we're seeing fountains and bottle fillers shut down all over the place. So the CDC is not being followed. And the ADA is important too. The ADA is the American Disability Act, been around for several decades now. And it's important to point out during COVID, I'll talk a lot about the theme of increased demand for bottle fillers. It's considered safer, and I'll get into that. But it's important to point out what the ADA specifically says, and that's that a bottle filler by itself cannot replace they require dual height drinking fountains, a low fountain for the wheelchair-bound disabled person, the high for those with a standing disability, say you've got crutches or a cane. And so it's important that, Haws makes a lot of bottle fillers, and I've had lots of contact with people who, during the height of COVID, are tearing out ADA compliant drinking fountains and installing bottle fillers by themselves. And that's something we really urge caution on, because what's going to happen is that as we get out of COVID, you're going to see that the rights under the ADA are much more enforced. They are enforced by the Department of Justice. This really does have teeth. It really is civil rights legislation. And we're going to find that a lot of people are going to be the proud owners of new fountains again, because the bottle fillers they put in are not permitted. Because you can't, as I will talk about, you can't just tear out a drinking fountain. It's adding a bottle filler to a drinking fountain. So bottle fillers are permitted, but drinking fountains are required. So that's important guidance to keep in mind as well.
That's a great point. And so the overview is the hydration industry has been in turmoil, but I hear enough internally to understand that there's a lot of products that are changing to adapt to those needs.
Yeah, that's right. And Justin, both you and I, when we're occasionally in the office, I mean, we're seeing new products, new displays, and new test sites at the factory much more than ever before.
Yeah, and I think the best way to summarize the changes with both drinking fountains and bottle fillers is really dumbing it down to two trends. First of all, fountains that are safe to touch, or one step is that you don't have to touch at all in order to activate and get safe drinking water, and the trend of bottle fillers everywhere. Because bottle fillers leave you in control of your own water carrying device, and it makes people feel more secure with their hydration without any more plastic bottles into the landfill. So at Haws, we've trended towards looking at a good, better, best strategy of operation. And so I'll be looking at good, safe touch. So these are buttons that you manually operate and touch, but they are safe to do so. A step up would be better, where there are hands-free bottle fillers, and best, which would be an all-touchless product. And I think it's key to point out as we look at these strategies that a key point is that good, better, best doesn't really refer to what is the best solution for a facility. So a facility may look at touchless products and go, oh, well, this is the best solution for safe operation. But if you're a school, for example, where you have to keep in mind how long it takes to make these changes, how expensive the cost is, whether or not there's electricity, and whether or not the product is vandal resistant, suddenly it may fluctuate. So good, better, best, I want to reinforce, doesn't mean these are levels of which way you should push your facility to. It's really just there are different levels of operating safe drinking fountains. Some you touch, some you kind of touch, and some you don't touch at all. And so I want to be looking at that. So starting with the good option, antimicrobial copper buttons. Now, copper is very well known in healthcare and other market segments as a very safe touch surface. I want to point out this is not a Haws invention. We didn't come up with antimicrobial copper. It's something that existed. We're just taking existing technology and applying it to our push buttons. Now, if you're interested in details, there's an excellent study by the very well-renowned New England Journal of Medicine, known as one of the best medical publications out there. And there's in fact a series of articles, and if you just Google key terms like copper, surface stability, and coronavirus, you'll see some very interesting studies by the New England Journal of Medicine. And basically what it says is that on copper, when it gets attacked by coronavirus and it's on the surface, immediately that antimicrobial copper works to break down the bacteria. And after only about an hour to an hour and 45 minutes, the surface stability, the bacteria is only at a half-life, meaning it's only half as strong as it initially was. And in less than 4 hours, the bacteria is completely gone. So very impressive and an excellent product for things like drinking fountains.
And in fact, we know that at Haws that our competitors in the past have brought out some fountains with copper touch points, but this was all pre-COVID, and the concept never really stuck around.
Right, but now copper is very much in fashion, and has been, Haws has been really successful with it, and I've been involved since the beginning and find it very interesting. And there's a couple of reasons, some of which I kind of alluded to. It's quick to install. First of all, you can get antimicrobial copper buttons installed at the factory along with your new fountains. But when you're doing a retrofit, the engine room of Haws stainless drinking fountains is our 5874 front access valve. You simply spin off that button, replace it with the antimicrobial copper. So your labor is very easy. The cost is low. I mean, the upcharge on new fountains to add for this antimicrobial copper button is the cost of a couple of ham sandwiches. I mean, it's not a very big lift. So it's a perfect solution for schools who need a rapid change, inexpensive solution. And oh, by the way, they need it to remain vandal resistant. And as I'll talk about, the category of electric water coolers, for all its features and benefits, it's nowhere nearly as vandal resistant as a traditional fountain. So there's a lot of schools who this is a good solution. A great example in my region is LA Unified School District, second largest district in the country, probably just under 1,000 schools, give or take. And I would say 6,000 or more drinking fountains and bottle fillers. And for them, this is a perfect solution. And they've started to install fountains with copper buttons because of these reasons. It's inexpensive, it's rapid. Getting schools open quickly, obviously turning on a couple of new buttons is a lot quicker than rewiring and hooking up hands-free solutions, amongst other problems, and it remains vandal resistant. So it's a great solution for a lot of facilities, particularly schools. I think it's just great.
Okay, and then transitioning from good to better here, I assume you mean that a step up from copper in terms of safe operation would be electric water coolers. Right.
Better, again, may not be the best appropriate choice for facility. Speed to market, as I talked about, making a fountain safe with a little manpower may be important, cost may be important, access to electricity. But I'd call an EWC better in terms of safety in general terms, because the next step up beyond safe touch is no touch. Now, the EWC isn't perfect in this respect. It's an interesting hybrid, the traditional electric water cooler that has been in the industry long before COVID. It's a hybrid between a manually operated drinking fountain by definition and a sensor operated bottle filler. And even before COVID, as I said, this market was very crowded. All the manufacturers in the space, including us, spent a lot of time and effort on this category. It's a solid combination of lower cost, chilled water, perhaps filtration, and now importantly, safe operation on the very popular hands-free bottle filler. And arguably for many, the law says you need the drinking fountain, the customer says you need the bottle filler. I like to use the analogy that when I'm in an airport, which used to be virtually every week, because I'm a drinking fountain geek, I would actually stand and watch people. And occasionally you see somebody wander up and use the fountain. But you see long lineups of people wanting to use the bottle filler. Again, that theme of controlling your own safe water. You've got your own personal colored Yeti bottle. So that's where really the demand has been. So as far as the electric water cooler, Haws has a pretty new one. It's been around for a year. Unfortunately, we launched it literally when COVID was hitting. So it's still fairly new to many in the market, as it takes a little while to get out and talk about new product. And so I want to go over some of the features of this product, and not only go through the features and benefits of the Haws product, but also talk a little bit about this category. I'm going to spend a few extra slides on this because of the popularity in the market of the EWC electric water cooler series. And one of the first key features I want to bring up is that ours effortlessly, just go back there one more, Justin, before thank you. One of the key features with ours is that it effortlessly retrofits over competitors' models. The category of EWCs is one that does not last as long as a traditional drinking fountain. A lot of electronic components. The chiller in particular has a lifespan. Typically, these units last around 5 to 7 years or so, depending on use. So there's a lot of retrofitting of the units. Typically, installing a competitor model over a new model is very difficult because of the amount of space that's available. We've changed that in ours. There's a lot of space, as I'll show you here. So retrofitting over existing ones, it becomes quite easy. So that's kind of a neat feature. Obviously, if you're familiar with the category, ours looks different than the other guys. It has progressive design with large clearances internally to make both filter replacement and maintenance a breeze, which is kind of neat. Quiet operation may or may not matter. I mean, if you're in a school with a crowded hallway, nobody's going to care that it operates quietly. Ours runs a little quieter than the competition. And Justin, you can confirm, in our training room at Haws, we've got a couple different competitor models running next to ours. And that 5 to 10% in a quiet setting, like an open office situation that's so popular now, you can actually really notice it. So that may or may not be something of interest to you. There's also a key feature of ours are the proprietary electronics. We have enhanced LED communications. That doesn't just mean nice lights in the back. It means we're based on cell phone technology with a lot of programmability that's pretty key to our unit that comes standard. So it allows for some energy savings and longevity. So the way the programmability works is, first of all, there is the option of a manual programming, which is unique to our product. You can program it to, for example, turn on at 8 in the morning, shut off at 5 at night. And then the unit sits there in rest mode overnight. The chiller doesn't keep running like competitor units does. So that's pretty key, because the way I look at it is, if you've got two identical cars in a garage, one you drive to work every day, pick up the kids from school, go shopping, and the other one, you only drive on weekends. Well, guess what? Eventually, one of them is going to last longer than the other because it's not being used as much. And that's how ours work. And Haws really focuses on the concept of sustainability is survivability. The best product is one you don't have to throw away and replace. And this extends the longevity to it. And this unit also has an auto sleep mode. So if you take it out of the box, don't bother doing any of the programming. After an hour of non-use each evening, and as the lights dim after an hour, the unit also goes into auto sleep mode. And in the morning, it's reactivated either if you tiptoe in the dark and turn it on, or more likely when the first person comes in and turns the light on, the chiller starts operating and right away you're into cold water. So some neat features to consider as well. Okay, now we can go to that next one, Justin. So our models are not too different than most of the competition in the market. We have 10 models to choose from right now. Basically, it's a combination of a single or a high-low unit with or without a bottle filler, with or without filtration. And then there's the new 1210 bottle filler only on the right side that Hayden was talking about. We're doing a drawing for, so you can put it in your garage or your facility. That one is available filtered or non-filtered. So 10 different models. A couple of features. One of the ones that I like to point out is the auto purge to prevent Legionella. Again, perfect for facilities that shut down over weekends, holidays, long periods of time. What happens is that once every 24 hours, there's an auto purge that surges water through the system, cleans it out of stagnant water, and that again is unique in the industry. Our chiller, really the heart of the operation, is tankless. The tradition in the industry is to have a tank chiller, so you store cold water and then draw from it. It's really just a different approach. I don't want to say that a tank chiller is worse than a tankless chiller. The small factor in certain regions is that sediment can build up in a closed tank over a period of time, whereas a tankless chiller flushes a clean flow of water every time. So that guarantees clean water. But both end up providing you with around 8 gallons per hour of chilled water. So that's just more for your information. Filters, obviously everybody offers filters. Our proprietary filter, our standard Haws filter, is a high quality carbon block filter, 3,000 gallon high capacity. Make sure you're comparing filtration capacity. There's a lot of filters that start around 1,250 gallons. So you want to compare apples with apples. Our big feature is choice. So our standard one is what we call a lockout feature filter. So it has an RFID tag. And basically, if the facility ignores the warning lights at 10% life of the filter left and you run it down to 0, eventually the system will shut down and you can't dispense water. Now, there's a lot of owners who like that. They want their students, their staff, their users to be guaranteed clean filtered water. And that may be important. A lot of facilities people, they may hate that because their phone's going to ring off the hook. So we're proposing choice. You can easily override that lockout feature if you don't like it. You can also use a non-Haws filter in our units. You can buy a non-filtered unit. There's plenty of room in the cavity to place your filter. You can also filter upstream. So again, we're really advocating choice with our filtration. And here's the 1210 again that we talked about. Same features and benefits of the rest of the series. One item that I like to point out is really two items. One is there's a bottle filling platform to put your bottle on. It can be lifted up and then you can clean underneath it very easily for maintenance people. We'll probably be expanding this to the rest of the line eventually. And then there's also a deeper basin in order to catch water splashing around when filling, when you're dumping a big water bottle. Obviously, there's a concern of water spilling, not only to hurt the electronics of the unit, but probably more importantly, creating a slip hazard as well. So this helps with that as well. Simplified design I talked about. This kind of gives you a visual of a competitor unit, which is pretty darn crowded, even for just changing that filter. Ours has a fair amount of space. So that's helpful not only for retrofitability, but also for new installation. We've timed commercial plumbers installing our unit. We've seen a typical savings of around 40 to 60 minutes, so pretty substantial. And sometimes even more depending on the unit that it's being compared to. So that's a big difference. So if time is of the essence for your facility staff and you think that's important, that might be something to keep in mind as well. One of the additional features during COVID that we added to the electric water cooler was bubbler deactivation. Keeping in mind that there's a lot of units that during the height of COVID, and I get it, I understand the safety concerns, a lot of drinking fountains were being deactivated. We decided to help clean that up and make it temporary, so you could just electronically disengage the fountain. It would display fountain off, so you know that it's not broken. And then you can even replace the bubbler with a cap that we include in the box. This comes no charge with a standard unit as well as some signage. So it recognizes that even moving forward, there's bacteria, there's issues that come up. Maybe it's MRSA, maybe it's a COVID or a variant. And yes, you need to pay attention to the ADA, but this can be a very temporary shutdown of the system that can very rapidly, as the situation settles down, it can be reactivated again. So I think that's kind of a neat feature as well. All right, moving on to the next one there.
So, and then we're on to the best category. And as far as safety goes, is hands-free. But that sounds a lot like what we've already been talking about, the EWC we just talked about in the better category.
Yeah, but keep in mind by hands-free here, I mean it's an electric water cooler that is completely hands-free, or traditional fountains that are completely hands-free. So a better option would be partial. It's a hybrid, manual operation for the drinking fountain. These are completely hands-free, so hence what I would term a better. And you know, these, again, there are few of these have been around before shutdown, hands-free fountains, but we've really seen it skyrocket during COVID. Their importance has grown exponentially. And if you look at the next slide here, Justin, there's some of the images I talked about as far as what we've seen out in the market. These are just electric water coolers, but we've seen it with drinking fountains as well. Many of them, even today, as things are improving, I continue to see as close by as my local grocery store that the units are shut down. And so a solution for many is going to hands-free activation, which is, we're going to see more and more. It allows facilities to navigate public health issues while still remaining in compliance with ADA regulation. So this is why I would term this a best solution for some. So in terms of the general category, the same similarities and differences about the electric water cooler. And again, Haws is not the only one who makes hands-free electric water coolers. Ours, a couple of unique features that I like. One is that you can see our sensor button on the right there is circled. We still maintain a redundant manual push bar operation. So if for some reason the sensor isn't working or is blocked, you can operate with the manual push bar. And the key feature I like on this is the object blockage notification. So if somebody comes along and puts a big wad of gum on that sensor, the unit will continue to run for 1 minute and then it'll shut down. If that object remains in place for 10 minutes, the unit can only be shut down and then started back up by a facilities operator. What this obviously allows is that if Johnny leaves school late in the day on a Friday with a big wad of gum on the sensor and puts some tissue in the drain, the janitor doesn't come in Monday morning with a really nasty surprise. So it's a nice vandal-resistant option, or not option, accessory that's included with this category. So I think that's very important. So the hands-free function is also available on Haws stainless drinking fountains, our family of drinking fountains on almost all models, both on the fountains and on the bottle fillers. You can see our 1920 standalone bottle filler on the right that can be added to fountains. And you can either add the sensor to both drinking fountains or just to the low unit and to the bottle filler if you like. So these models are designated as HO for hands off on our website. And again, some of these existed, but sat on the shelf and weren't very popular pre-COVID. Huge surge in this product section right now. I think we've done a great job here on this whole category. Now, also important as a new product is what we call the RKHO retrofit sensor kit. So basically what this allows you to do is take out that 5874 front access valve I talked about and replace it with a sensor kit. A great solution for those who have perfectly good fountains that are meant to last many, many years sitting in place. We're working on a large project with LAX right now where they have hundreds of Haws fountains. They've begun to replace those 5874 valves. They don't want to tear them out and throw them away. Very costly, very wasteful, a lot of extra labor. We've come up with a simple retrofit kit. So for a lot of facilities, this may be the way to go as a touchless option. So one of the questions that often comes up on this, actually Hayden, you and I were talking about this earlier, was whether or not these can go into other units. So it's probably a good time to bring that up. And the answer is a qualified, it depends. I don't think I got my complete answer out to you before, Hayden, but just to explain, so you can retrofit virtually any Haws unit with the 5874, your interior fountains. Or bottle fillers. You can also retrofit some competitor units like the LK Slimline and Soft Side series, for example, because they basically replicate what we have for our valve access. The key thing is if you want to see if your fountain, non-Haws fountain can work, is to take the valve out and see if you have an 1 5/16 hole. That's the key diameter we need. It doesn't guarantee that we can put our sensor in there, but it gets you in the ballpark, and then we can look into available space and details, and you can talk to Haws customer service. But that's the key thing, is just how much space there is. So retrofittable on all Haws fountains and some of our competitor fountains out there. So hopefully that answers some questions on that as well.
Yeah, thank you for answering that, Lex. We actually just had a few of those questions come in, so that's very helpful.
Perfect. I'm anticipating it. There we go. Getting back to my early point that the two trends, again, are safe operation and bottle fillers everywhere. Again, bottle fillers in particular is an acceleration of a trend that was happening before COVID. I want to point out just a couple other bottle filler options. Here is our new 1922 manually operated bottle filler with catchment. So that 1920, that's really the mainstay, that unit with the copper button, which is a perfect add-on for the 1920. You can add that over existing drinking fountains, Haws or not Haws, depending on the amount of space you have and the reach over the drain bowl. But now, because of the surge in demand during COVID, where it's bottle fillers everywhere, we've come up with one so that there is a catch basin. So You can have this as a standalone in addition to your drinking fountains. A lot of demand for this type of product. Again, this uses our workhorse 5874 push button valve. Perfect if you add a copper button for safe touch. We're seeing, again, a big surge in this type of product, and there's a few others as well. So the bottle filler trend really continues on outdoor fountains as well. And here's yet another category of fountains that existed before COVID, but we've taken to another level in the last year. And in part, it's really because of that bottle filler feature. And in addition to the fact that it's a sleek looking line, you can add options, not only the bottle fillers, dog bowls, got to have those, hose bib placement, etc. after installation. But the heart of the line, and this is modular, so you can actually have literally hundreds of combinations, but really the workhorse of the line are the 3 ADA compliant models. So 3602, which is your high-low, 3603, which is the same, but with the additional child height bowl. And then really the star of this lineup is a 3612 because of that bottle filler feature. But really what makes these products unique and why they've really stood out has to do with ADA. And without going too much into depth, and Justin does a great job on an ADA webinar, the two selling features have to do with space. Basically, what we've done is we've put, you can see on the left here on our unit, the activation buttons are all facing in one direction, all forward. ADA calls for a forward approach by your disabled person. So we put them all on the one side for long reasons that I won't get into. But historically, that button on the left in red is where one of the buttons is, so that the wheelchair-bound person, it actually would be on the low, would have to go all the way around, and you end up having a much bigger hardscape or concrete pad. Well, parks, schools, there's a couple of things they want to do. They want to keep costs down. Concrete costs a lot of money. Even more importantly, they like to limit the amount of space that fountains take up. They want to tuck them out of the way. This allows you to have a lot less space. A traditional outdoor fountain, with or without a bottle filler, is well over 100 inches of required hardscape space in order to comply with ADA. The Haws unit, because of the location of our buttons, allows you to take up only roughly 77 inches, pretty significant savings in space. So that's a big feature. The other feature is because of the square design and the fact that if you look carefully on the center tower, there is a front access panel. That front access panel allows us to be in compliant with the ADA and get this unit very close to a wall or fence within 8 inches. Compare that with others, that's a significant savings in space. So typically we're seeing schools, parks, they're upgrading, they're adding bottle fillers. They want to get in ADA compliance, a key feature for commercial facilities, but this one saves them a lot of space, and that's the big difference. And that's really what has made this unit popular. So that may be something of interest to you as well. But a very popular series of products, really fundamentally built on the demand, again, for bottle fillers on everything, but also because of some unique features that are compliant with the ADA as well. So to wrap all this up, you know, the trend in general, again, is a rapid change in hydration during the last year or so during COVID, and the rapid change overall towards two big trends. Safe touch, if you're touching manually, with things like copper buttons, as we've come up with, or hands-free operation, and a big, big demand for bottle fillers in various configurations, just a few of which I've shown. So I think that kind of covers what I wanted to cover. I've talked enough. Hayden, how about I hand it back over to you to wrap things up?
Yeah, will do. Thank you, Lex. Justin, you mind moving on to the next slide? Thank you. So we'll be getting to a few questions in just a minute. First, I want to remind everyone that we will be selecting one lucky attendee from today to win a Haws 1210 hands-free bottle filling station. For privacy reasons, we'll be contacting the selected winner within the next 24 hours, just like how you wouldn't want the news announcing your name if you won the lottery. All right, so let's get on to a few questions that we had come in. Start off with the first one from Mary. She asked, you say that bottle fillers are allowed only in addition to drinking fountains and not in place of. but my understanding is you can in fact replace some drinking fountains with bottle fillers only. Can you please clarify this? Justin, you want to take this one?
Yeah, no problem. So the main point I would want to make here is that you have two different sources for information. You have your local plumbing code and you have the ADA. Know ahead of time that the ADA supersedes local plumbing code, except where local code is more strict than what's in place in the ADA. Now, local plumbing code changes regionally, but many states or state that up to 50% of your drinking fountains can be replaced with bottle fillers. But I want to be clear and remind you that you cannot replace an ADA required drinking fountain with a bottle filler. However, not all of your drinking fountains are required. And if that's the case, then yes, you can replace it. So if you're replacing a fountain, be sure that it isn't an ADA fountain. Now, if you're looking to replace a fountain, maybe consider retrofitting a bottle filler or adding a bottle filler in addition to the existing equipment. Because Haws makes a ton of options for that and make it easy either way. But just ensure that the fountain you're replacing is not ADA, and check your local plumbing code ahead of time.
And just to jump in and add to that, Justin, there's been a lot of jobs I've been involved with where they literally have been taking out all high-low fountains in a facility and replace them all with hands-free bottle filler only. That means by definition, some of those are ADA units, and that's where they're making a mistake. So the general rule, which I totally agree with you on, is don't replace any, add them in addition to, and if you are replacing, proceed cautiously. So good question.
Thank you, guys. Our next question is from Dawn, and I think this would be a good one for you to handle, Lex. It is, when I have looked into ADA and drinking fountains, I see no reference to bottle fillers, in fact, being permitted, yet you say they are. Please clarify. My facility was told not to proceed due to ADA concerns.
Yeah, good question. So without getting too long-winded, here's the quick answer to that. So a little history. The precursor to the ADA was the ANSI standard. Basically, the ADA, when it was created in the early 90s, adopted hook, line, and sinker everything that was in the ANSI standard. The ADA only gets updated every decade or so. It's probably due for an upgrade coming in the next couple of years. And right now, you're correct, the ADA does not specifically address bottle fillers. But going back to that ANSI precursor, which ADA has copied before, in I think it was 2017, give or take, they came up with an A117 standard that basically acknowledged the growing importance of bottle fillers. And what they said was, you can have bottle fillers as long as you fulfill all your ADA requirements, which means having high-low ADA compliant drinking fountains. And they come up with some stipulations for space and details. But the bottom line is, what they're saying is that under the ANSI standard, which again is the precursor for ADA, which I fully expect in the next ADA release will be adopted exactly as is, the ANSI says you can have bottle fillers in addition to your ADA required drinking fountains, but you cannot replace them. And that goes to my comment at the beginning. This gives it a little bit of substance, that it's bottle fillers are an option, drinking fountains that are ADA compliant are required. So let's say it was your facility, as it appears here, we're telling you not to proceed because it's not in ADA. That's really a technicality. It is in the ANSI standard, and the ANSI standard basically replicates and is the precursor to the ADA. So you should be safe moving forward once you point that detail out.
Our third question is from Jose. I like Haws product, but you don't seem to have the same architectural offering that LK does in terms of an architectural stainless bowl with hands-free, low-profile bottle filler and recessed chiller. BWC doesn't work for many of my clients because they want a recessed unit for clear access and a higher end look. Lex, I think this would be a good one for you to touch on.
Yeah, and it's actually, the timing's pretty good. So the answer is that we actually do have some product, and we have some new product coming out. So what the gentleman's referring to is a very popular, there's an EZWS and an LZWS or SW. I always get the letters mixed up from LK. But basically, again, what it is it's providing chilled water. So it's got a chiller that sits recessed into the wall, unlike the surface mounted electric water cooler. So it's more stylish, a little more space. Stainless bowls, often the circular ones like our Haws 1011 series. And then in their model, there's a hands-free bottle filler. Theirs happens to be a lot of plastic on it. So aesthetically, it looks nice. It's an upgrade from the electric water cooler, but it's a hybrid of high-end stainless with some hands-free bottle filler with a degree of plastic to it. If you look up our Haws H1011.8, that is our swirl bowl with recessed chiller. We can add a 1920, the bottle filler I spoke about, over top. All of the buttons we can do hands-free, so you can do both fountains and the bottle filler, and all of our unit is going to be stainless, 14 gauge, vandal resistant, and it's going to be pretty slick looking and use the same amount of space as the LK unit, because really your deepest dimension is the bowls anyways. So although we're using a 1920 that protrudes slightly, it can be hands-free if you want it that way, and gives you an all stainless unit. And in addition, this one's not on the website yet, but we have another very popular bowl that keeps your cost down a little. It's called the 1117LN. If you reach out to our customer service, we can help you with that same unit in an alternate bowl. Really slick looking unit. We can provide you some photos and get some details on that. So the quick answer is we have a similar unit right now, and we will have even more units with a lot of flexibility coming up. So I think we can help you.
All right, and then our last question is going to be from Amanda. She asks, you talk about sensor operation for indoor fountains but not outdoor. Is there any reason I can't just use the same sensor outdoors if you are using the same Haws valve indoors and outdoors?
Maybe I'll jump in, Justin, if you don't mind, because I've been working on this one. Although people may be tired of hearing my voice, but yeah. So basically, there's two issues. One is that by its very nature, an outdoor fountain tends not to have electronics. You need power to run a hands-free unit. So right now, one of the issues would be that for a lot of people, that's a pretty heavy lift. You have to run wiring outside. And so the solution is coming up with either a battery operated unit or something with some solar power. And it's something that's on our list. That list is big during COVID. There's an awful lot of outdoor fountains. I think you'll stay tuned in the market. You'll see that's what I talk about with COVID. The changes are not over. They're going to continue. That'll be an example. And the other issue is that light plays funny tricks with sensors. So you have to figure out how to have the right sensor that does not get tricked by light. Now in Seattle, for arguably 10 months of the year, that's not an issue. But if you're in large parts of the country where there's a lot of sunshine all the time, that outdoor light going against the sensor could play some funny tricks. So it's on the list. You'll continue to see changes, and I suspect that'll be one of them coming up. So no immediate resolution, but I think you'll see one in the market before too long.
That's perfect. And so we're gonna wrap it up there. And we want to thank everybody for your time today. This is going to be the end of our webinar here. We appreciate your attendance greatly, and for you being here. Our contact information is on the screen for a reason. Please utilize us as points of contact for questions and as a way to further interact with our company. Hayden and Lex, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up today's webinar?
Yeah, I think appreciate the time, appreciate everybody's attendance. The key thing is whoever you reach out to, your local sales rep from Haws, your customer service team at Haws, I'm sure we could help you with the details that you need. So appreciate your attendance and stay tuned for further changes.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to say it again. If we did not get to your question today in the chat, you will hear from us shortly with an answer. Thank you.
Yep, we'll be sure to answer all of those. Thank you again. Also be sure to visit hawsco.com. We have a chat function on there with our customer service that can be incredibly useful to you. And stay tuned for more webinars from us in the future. And we greatly appreciate you attending this one. And have a great day.